What up, sluts? Today I'm doing a speed fire round of conversation topics. It's going to be like a podcast, but with a lot of cuts, because no one has time to listen to a podcast. The only people that listen to podcasts are freaking nerds. And to all of you guys that listen to podcasts, I want you to take a big old bucket of ice and throw it. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. This never happens. This is so embarrassing. This is my hypocrite phone. What? Gus and Eddie made another podcast? Well, cancel all my plans. I'm going to watch all of them all day. Good bit. Thanks, dude. So, what's the deal with airline food? You guys ever fart so bad that it makes your cat throw up? You know, something I've never really understood is like the Instagram ratio, like the followers to following thing. I don't know, it just seems unnecessary. I mean, it's like if you're a social media influencer and you're trying to get sponsorships, they're trying to look for like, oh, what kind of audience do you have? Do you have whatever? I get that, but when you're just like Steve from accounting, no one cares about you, Steve. No one gives a hoot, Steve. It's like, to me, it's comparable to like, you know, when you spend more time pooping than you do wiping, or vice versa. It's like that. Like somebody kicking down my door and being like, hey, I just pooped in your toilet, and the amount of time that I spent pooping was less of that. I'd be like, cool, dude, I don't really care. Ew, wait, so like, are the posts like the poop? Or, you know what really grinds my gears? You know when you see like a really bad video on the internet of like somebody like having like the worst day of their lives, having like a mental breakdown, and then all the comments are just like, I bet his name's fucking Kyle. Just not empathizing at all for that guy's or girl's or dog's situation. That just kind of makes me mad. I wanted to say it was like a generational thing, but I don't even know if we could say that. I think it's just because it's out there and stuff more. But then again, I feel kind of weird saying stuff like that because I'm saying that you should empathize for this specific thing that is my thing, or my thing that I empathize with. And yet, like, I eat meat, and those animals didn't ask to be killed so that I could sit on the couch and eat them, sweat out their body fat. Ew. God, what a gross. But you know, it's like one of those things where it's like, am I being a hypocrite, or am I just being like selectively empathetic? Because I know a lot of like my vegetarian and vegan friends who are like really, they'll get like physically upset at the sight of somebody eating an animal, but I don't, and they probably maybe don't really care when they see somebody freaking out like I do. So is it selective empathy, or am I just like, I'm just probably thinking about this shit way too much. Do you ever have like a really bad stomach ache? Stomach? Cute. I wrote down a bunch of ideas in my phone that I wanted to talk about, but I'm recording this using my phone, so I don't have access to them. 10 out of 10 genius brain. I don't get that cat, dude. Did you guys see the new Aladdin movie? This is okay. Wait a minute! I had a dream that I was in high school again. And it was really real, and it was super strange because in the dream I was worried about high school almost being over and not knowing what to do, not knowing what I was going to do after high school, which is not really what happened when I was in high school. In high school I was like absolutely sure, I was like knew what I was going to do when I got out of high school, and then whoops, slipperoony. Life happens, you learn, you live. You said that backwards, whatever. My name spelled backwards is D-Bod. I was really mad at this girl for a long time because there was this miscommunication thing that happened with her and one of my ex-girlfriends. It ended up being like not even that big of a deal, because even if like best case scenario the miscommunication didn't happen, a year after I saw her, she like was like pregnant and married to this like super rich older dude. She like learned Hebrew and shit. So probably wasn't looking for a guy like old Davy Jones. You ain't never had a disease like Crohn's. Dude, you know what freaks me out? I have Crohn's disease, and like I'm 25, I turn 26 next year, and I'm not gonna be on my parents' insurance anymore, and if I don't get my meds, I die. So that's pretty crazy. I don't know what I'm gonna do about that. I should probably start. I wouldn't even know where to start. You gotta have guilty pleasures or you'll explode. When your girlfriend sticks your finger in her butt. Wait. I saw this dude at a bar yesterday, and he reminded me so much of my dad, and it was so funny because I used to get nervous going into bars because I look really young, first of all, and then there's also this like weird bravado that comes with being in a bar where everybody wants to inflate themselves. When I saw this dude and it reminded me of my dad, it was just so funny because my dad's like, he's a goofy dude. I like your dogs. I gotta say, being a parent sounds terrifying. It's such a weird balancing act that you have to do, where you have to like be disciplinary, but also supportive, but also like you have to tell them not to do things because they're bad for them, because they're young. But also you, like some of those things you might do, like smoking and drinking and cursing, and like that's probably pretty weird and pretty hard to maintain. Because I used to teach private lessons how like easy it is for kids to get for them to soak up habits. Like one of the kids I used to teach was like a really good kid, but he had like this older brother that was such a tool. And I remember I was teaching him lessons for like a while, and then his mom and dad got a divorce, and like his mom was like, we can't pay you to do lessons anymore. And I was like, no problem, but I'm still here if you need him to, because he didn't have any friends, and his brother was a shithead, and his dad lived on the other side of the country. So I was like, he's a good dude. I was teaching for like a year, so I was like, I'll still hang out with him, but then eventually like they moved, and he started hanging out with his older brother a lot more, and he went from just like this normal dorky kid who liked video games to like this fucking like selling drugs, being hard as fuck, and it was just kind of like sad to see that happen. But it's what's crazy is like how quickly that stuff can shift in like younger people. So like being a parent must be pretty hard, because you have to keep up that facade for such a long time, and then eventually at some point, once they're old enough, you are like, okay, I don't have to keep doing this whole facade thing. I can just be myself now that you're a grown person who has like instilled morals that I've given you and lessons that I've whatever, and you have this little voice in your head that's me telling you, hey, don't smoke crack, it's probably bad or whatever your parents taught you when you were younger. But then it's like the double-edged sword part of it is that you start being yourself, and then your kids get mad because you're like, oh, my whole childhood was. But dude, how can you really expect somebody to do that? Like a lot of relationships are hard enough as far as keeping that thing alive and keeping that thing going for 18 years, give or take, of like just pretending to be like Mr. fucking Squeaky. I can't imagine how crazy that must be, especially with like how, because when you have a kid, your life doesn't just stop. You still have stuff that happens where you like have friends pass away, or you have loss of love, or challenges at your job. Those things still happen. Existential crises, and you have to do all of that while maintaining this tiny life form. Oh my god, dude, they kind of have to give up their entire life for this thing. So it's admirable to say the least. Why am I talking about parenthood? Am I menstruating? Dude, I feel like I never shut the fuck up when I'm with anybody, and then I get to like this point and I'm just completely drawing a shit. Better than shooting blanks, am I right, fellas? My little guys swim in circles. I think it's all the bike riding. Dude, I haven't paid taxes in like 3 years. And I always get nervous that like I'm gonna get in trouble for that. But then I remember that like if you make less than 10 grand a year, you don't have to pay taxes. And I'm a human raccoon. Oh god, I am such a useless piece of shit. Man, the lighting for this is gonna be all over the place because it's like sunny and also overcasty. Ooh boy. Little soft burps. Man, I feel like everybody falls into categories with things, and like everyone's kind of on their own little spectrum of things, like your vision or your hobbies. They're all just like not definitive, like you are this person. It's just like a wavelength of things. Like I like video games, but I don't like Smash Bros. I don't like competitive like multiplayer games like Smash Bros. Or like Call of Duty or anything like that. I like single player RPGs. So it's like I'm a nerd gamer guy, but I'm not like the friend and engagement wise possible nerd gamer guy, which kind of stinks. And it's like I like certain anime, but I'm not like a full on weeb. I'm not super out of shape, but I am like, no, I am super out of shape. That one's not true at all. I don't know. I feel like everybody kind of wants to be like fit into a clique of some kind, and it's this feeling of security, almost, to always kind of have like a group or a thing to fall onto. But I feel like I've never really had that. Like, I'm pretty much in the gray area with a lot of stuff, like politics, social politics, video games, movies, like, and part of me for a long time wanted to be like, to force myself into one of those groups, but it would be ill-advised because I don't know, people can kind of see through that stuff, and like, you would never really feel as satisfied or as engaged as they would be. And so it would end up being like, I used to, right when I got out of high school, I would watch like those old high school movies, and I would get sad because I was like, man, in high school I just like was like hyper focused into being a music person, like really doing that I didn't really do any of the crazy like high school things that you always see in the movies. That caused me to like kind of spiral into like, I would just go and I would say yes to everything, and I would put myself in situations, and it was a good learning experience because I feel like I kind of broke out of my shell, learned about what I liked and what I didn't like, less so on just the surface value of something where it's like, oh, I have to pay for parking. Man, no, it's not that part you don't like, it's the, you know, being really close together with people you don't know thing that you don't like. And that's fine. But anyways, at the end of the day, I ended up realizing that I would go out and do these things and come back home and still kind of feel underwhelmed with everything. So I would just be like, man, I did all these things, but I still feel the same way that I did before. And it's because it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. Like my 21st birthday, most people have like fucking crazy ragers where they go out to bars, like do bar hopping and get shit-faced. All I wanted to do for my birthday was I got like a 24 pack of beers. I had like 2 of my friends over, and we played Mass Effect 2 again. Like, we had already played it a million times, and it was just kind of what I wanted to do, and that made me happy. And you know, one of the things that I used to do was like ask people if they were a cocktail, what would they be, like personality wise, and what they bring to the table. And I think right out of high school, I was like a vodka Red Bull. Like, I was just fucking, and I would really get people fucking amped and ready and just hyper, and it was a lot of fun. But over the years, I realized it was even just that was a facade, and I've become more of like a nightcap, where I just kind of like, you know, people come over, they hang out for a little bit, they get sleepy. I got a fucking baller ass couch, so it's like Sleep Town USA over here. I don't know, that kind of made me sad when I first realized that, but once you kind of like accept and stop fighting against who you are, I feel like a lot of good things happen more naturally. And there's going to be a lot more like lulls and stuff, at least that from what I've seen. There's a lot less like of me. I don't do as much stuff as I used to do, but I don't feel like I've ever been missing out on anything. And also when things come up, it's more celebrated. I don't know, fuck dude, I'm rambling so much. Somebody cool me down.
I used to be really hyped up in the gay community.
Disingenuous. I use that word too much. I was talking to somebody recently about something. I think it was like they were talking about their abusive ex-partner, and I didn't have any like really like reactions, because like this is like a serious story that they're telling me, and I don't want to like devalue it in any way by bringing theatrics into the conversation. You know, I just want to hear what they're saying and really soak it in. I don't know, I feel like some people appreciate that. I'm gonna eat this butane. Well, this has been an interesting journey, hasn't it? We've come a long way. I appreciate that you've... Dude, there's cat hair everywhere. I appreciate that you spent this time with me. I promise I'll never do this again, because it was a lot of random, dumb, ranty stuff. I don't know. There are a lot of like small things I always want to talk about, but then I'm like, I can't make a whole video about that. Not only will it only be like 30 seconds, but also it won't really like mean anything. So I just kind of wanted to like spitfire some things I've been thinking about recently. And I drank all of this. Oh my god, I'm gonna poop so much. So yeah,